What's going on, everybody? Scott Oden coming at you today. This literally could be the most important video that we ever do on this channel. We're going to be with Joe Sharon, who is at Smart Golf and Fitness in Chicago. Very excited to be again with him, and we're going to be going through feedback, which is so important if you're trying to get better. There's different types of feedback. Feedback is essentially just how do you know if you are doing what you are trying to do, and there's going to be different types for different stages in your game. Are you working on your swing? You need a different type of feedback. If you are working on a shot, you need that feedback. If you are working on going on course and shooting lower scores, you need different types of feedback. Okay, so very excited to do this with him. And if you have any questions, please leave those comments down below. And remember, click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. Let's get out to Chicago.
What we've done here is we've kind of broken down game improvement into what we call our three tiers of development: training, practice, play. Each one of those tiers have a very specific objective and very specific feedback. So play is easy, right? What are we trying to do? Trying to hit a fairway.
Right.
We're trying to put the ball close to the hole. Get it in the hole in as few strokes as possible.
Right.
Well, what's your feedback?
Score.
Your score, your performance. That's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
So on the other end of the spectrum, what we just blanket, it's a term that we didn't come up with, but what we like to coin it as is training. And what that means is we're training movement. What's the objective? Train movement. So if we've determined in your timing equation that this particular variable, one I just use as an example all the time, is a sway, which has its domino effect of reverse spine and a whole bunch of other compensations that get associated with that. But if we've determined that this is the objective, right, what do you think would be good feedback to determine if you're doing that or not?
Right.
Well, for me, which I still think is the best invention to ever exist, even with all the TrackMans and launch monitors and biomechanics, is video, right? So, and one of the things we like to do here at Smart Golf is we'll just turn the camera on live video.
Yeah.
And we'll draw a line and just say, hey, show yourself. And I specifically like the head to stay forward. I don't like guys following it with their eyes because obviously that's not a good habit in the golf swing.
Right.
But, and then, let's say we do that and then we'll try to make contact. And then we'll look at the video, not the ball, right? So the problem with also, or I should say problem, the challenge with teaching outside and not having video and only having your coach, not necessarily having a mirror, what's your only feedback?
Ball flight.
Ball flight.
Yeah.
Which can be good or bad.
Right.
It's good if you're immediately trying to change that ball flight, which don't even get me started because there is a myriad of coaches out there that say once you've opened your mouth, the ball should be better. That's tough.
Right.
Anyhow, so with ball flight being your only feedback, we're very emotionally attached to the ball. We are.
Sure.
That's just the reality.
Yeah. Outcome. Right.
So what I found is, because I used to be that coach where I didn't have the video, I didn't have the mirror, and I'd give the person the information. They'd get it. They'd understand it. We'd explain it. We'd agree with why we're going after it. But the next swing, they sway. They hit the shot worse because now they're thinking about something new. And then they do it again and do it again. And this isn't like 100%. Sometimes you'll get guys that, they respond to it well. And they hit the next shot very well. And that's a whole nother conversation, which when you're on the range and you don't have this feedback where there's a common tutelage on changing grip, changing alignment, and giving a swing thought, because really that's your best chance at success. Because it's really, really tough to make a very solidified structural change, one in 30 minutes or an hour,
right,
or one without the appropriate feedback. So back to the point. So going to the middle tier, which is practice, we now care about the ball, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways you can practice. This is a skill set. This is hitting high shots, low shots, left to right, right to left, your short game, right? We actually, seeing if you can take this new pattern and actually hit a shot that you like. Right? So what I try to avoid, and the reason we compartmentalize this, number one, the emotional detachment to the golf ball, because if guys are hitting it poorly, it's not uncommon for them to lose faith in themselves,
Right.
lose faith in the direction, right? And give up because it's too frustrating.
Yeah.
Right? So you've lost them, right? We don't want that.
Right.
And the other part is the whole paradigm that you have to play worse before you get better. It happens, but it's not true. What we see is the number one reason why people play worse before they get better, especially after a lesson for the first time,
Yeah.
is they go into the lesson Let's say they get new information. They agree with the information. They logically understand the information. They get it. Maybe even throughout the course of the lesson, they execute it. But then they go back out to the golf course where they have a history. They have a history within that stimuli with an associated pattern. Yet now they're thinking about this new information, not the way they played golf before. That's pretty conflicting, right? And then they go out there with the assumption that just because they're thinking about it, they're executing it.
Yeah.
And then they shoot a score that's higher than it should be. And then there goes the blame, whether it's themselves, the coach, the information, or whatnot. So funny enough, when I'll get done with first lessons at guys, because, we require a long-term commitment here, and they'll be like, hey, what am I supposed to go play with? I'll be like, well, you executed 1 or 2 reps kind of good today. This lesson's not over. There's a lot more direction given, so we haven't met yet. And you'll get guys that are adamant. They're like, hey, man, but I want to expedite this process. I don't want to go out there and go to my old pattern. And I'm just like, listen, you're giving yourself way too much credit.
Right.
And quite frankly, if you want to go out there and execute this new pattern and try to do it, fine. But I don't want to see your scorecard afterwards.
Right.
All right. So I just think that's super, super important when guys have a very deep understanding of what feedback is necessary, what feedback is not necessary, and when that feedback is necessary.
So when you're saying, okay, so we've got a training stage, essentially you're learning the pattern, you're collecting information, from a coach, video, all of that stuff. That's going to be the feedback that's required there. Okay, then you're
do not care about the ball.
Right, and so it's, hey, if we're watching it on video, I want to see it move better.
Yes.
That's it. I want to see it. We got to see this, and we go through that, and it's got to get there. Okay, don't care what the ball does.
Correct.
Then you're going to go into more of a skill development phase, or it's not necessarily playing on the course yet, but now you got to hit some shots.
Yep.
Okay, so that type of feedback you're going to use. Are you going to be on a course setting, or are you just going to have them on a range?
Yeah, it varies. So what's cool about TrackMan now is you can actually use the video on a course setting.
Yeah.
And although we're not outside, it's pretty amazing just by putting a different target in front of them, how, the different area of the brain that attracts. But yeah, so like throughout the course of a session, it varies on individuals and it varies on the time of season. If I'm in the off season, we're coaching in the winter and we only care about the pattern. What's nice is guys aren't playing, so they don't care about how fast they're able to get this. That's really nice. So, but that being said, there's a recipe. You've got to determine, and a little bit of it's guesswork, but you've got to determine how many reps of this drill do I want you to do before we stress test it. That's what we call. So there's a progression of everything. Yeah. 1, can you do the pattern without a ball? And without a club. Cool. Can you do the pattern with a club? Execute the pattern with a club. Cool. Can you execute the pattern with a club and a ball at lesser speed? Sweet. Can you do that 10 times in a row? Great. Let's stress test. Can you do it with at speed?
Right.
And we'll see are there any carryover, right? The goal here, the big picture goal, is to reach a state of autonomy. So another piece of information in which we talk about on a regular basis is the science behind changing a motor pattern, right?
Yeah.
Our goal isn't to have you come in here, find this perfect combination of swing thoughts, or contort your body in this physically demanding position to where if you do it just right, you'll play better golf. Right? Our goal is to get you on the golf course, under pressure, executing a new pattern without even thinking about it. Now, there is that little gray area. We're working on it long enough where that thought, that particular swing thought, is worthwhile bringing to the golf course, because now you've worked on it long enough to where your actual thought is enough to make the change, okay? So, but there's 3 stages. There's cognitive, associative, and autonomy. Right. Cognitive, there's your information. Do you get it? Do you understand it? That's part of the learning process. Associative, that's the work. That's the failing. That's making mistakes. That's another thing we can talk about, is just that how important failing is, how important making the mistakes is, and working through those unworkable outcomes at the time. That's huge. If you're not in there struggling and making those mistakes, ironic as it is, that's actually super important to your development.
Right.
Until the point where you're like, come in and you're making a swing, and look at video and you go, holy cow, that is a different pattern.
Right.
And then you bring that back to our timing equation and analogy, and we work on it in parts, start to finish. You can really make massive structural change in golf swings while they actually still play well in the moment.
Right.
Yeah, I will say this. Is it important to get out into the environment? 100%.
Yeah.
But I will say, I have 5 guys I'm currently working that are 10 to 1 handicap now. I've never gone outside with them.
Right.
Yeah. Just from changing the pattern.
Yeah. Then they can take it out there. They can mess around with whatever they're going to do with it. Hey, I got this wind. I got whatever they need to do for whatever their skill level is, right?
Yep.
They can take that.
And that's learning to play. You don't even necessarily need a coach out there to teach you that. That's called being an athlete, being adaptable. Playing to learn, rather, right? You have to play.
And I think what you said there is just a common thing. It struck a chord with me. It's, so often I see people or I hear from people, oh, I took a lesson and then I went the next day and I went and tried that out. There's no way I can do that. And it's like, there's no way you can determine that
And what
at this
happens?
point, right?
Do they come back to you?
They do, and I have to explain it to them. I have to explain to them how this works.
But there are the ones that don't, right?
Sure.
There's a clip that's always played influence on me. I actually talked about it in my speech for Teacher of the Year this year, and it's Butch Harmon. He's on the stage giving a speech. And he's talking about how his 18 handicap came and took a lesson from him, a 30-minute lesson, hour lesson, and he goes out and plays that afternoon with his buddies.
Yeah.
And didn't play very well. And he goes, you know what? Butch Harmon, he's not for me.
Right.
And he didn't go back to him. Where at the same breath, he's talking about, I got a tour player. Let's talk about a tour player as a young professional athlete. That is their full-time job. They're able to isolate, as many hours in a week as the average person probably can do in a year to change that pattern. It takes them 6 months.
Right.
Yet this guy came in and said, you know what, Butch Harmon wasn't for me. So
Yeah.
that's where you got to ask, is that Butch Harmon's fault? He's not a good enough coach to be able to help this guy?
Right.
No, and that's a deeper conversation that goes back to expectations matching reality.
Right. Hey, everybody, that's where we're going to wrap it up. Hopefully you got something out of that. Again, that is so critical and so important. Literally, I think it's the most important part of getting better at this game is knowing what type of feedback you need and knowing that there's going to be stages that you go through. It's not just going to be, hey, I work on my swing, get it perfect, and then that's automatically going to make me shoot lower scores. It might help a little bit, but you need to then work on getting that to the point where it will actually help you shoot lower scores. So if you have any questions about it, please leave that comment down below. Make sure you check out our free Art of Impact crash course down in the description as well. That's completely free. And as always, if you're looking for help on your game, a more personalized look at the game, make sure you check out our coaching programs as well. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.